Well, hello and welcome back. Thanks for coming back. Today's topic, the cost of living in Cyprus. Perhaps if you're thinking about relocating, moving to Cyprus, perhaps to start that next adventure in your life. Some of the most important things that you're going to need to know are how much it's going to cost you if you want to reside in Cyprus. Is it going to be cheaper than the country that you're moving from? We all understand that many people want to move to Cyprus because of the quality of life. The weather, well, quite amazing. 1st of September today, 30 degrees, and it's just gone 11 o'clock in the morning. Humidity is coming down nicely, and we are in what we call the golden period. September, October, November, and the weather is absolutely fabulous, which of course in many parts of Northern Europe and of course the UK, the weather, should we say, is starting to take a turn for the worse, but not in Cyprus. No, outdoor lifestyle, and that's what it's all about, and having a fantastic time in your life as you progress on that next chapter and of course reside in Cyprus. So let's talk about some of the cost of living, what you can expect. Now, if you are coming to Cyprus, perhaps to start that next chapter or perhaps to just try it out, probably you're going to rent a property. It could be a 1-bedroom apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment, perhaps a 2-bedroom bungalow or a townhouse, or perhaps even something a bit fancier like a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom villa. So what are those costs? If you're going to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, a nice 1-bedroom apartment on a nice complex, let's say somewhere in Paya, in Mandria, perhaps in and around the beach area of Paphos, Paphos, Tomb of the Kings, Yerusskipu, these kind of areas, you're going to pay probably around about 700 to 800 euros for that 1-bedroom apartment. If you want a 2-bedroom apartment, again in a similar location, on a similar type of complex, you're going to be paying between 900 and 1,000 euros, maybe a little bit more. It all depends on, of course, the quality of the apartment and, of course, that complex that you're on. When you go to a 3-bedroom, to be honest, there's not that many 3-bedroom apartments available, but they are currently building quite a nice complex just set back behind Paphos and the Universal area before you head into the older town area. And those apartments are absolutely spectacular. They are places that you could live in for the rest of your life. The rent on those 3 bedrooms, obviously ensuite bathrooms, fabulous views if you're on the top floor, of course, they're going to cost you in and around 2,000 euros per month. So 1-bedroom apartments on a nice complex, shall we say 700-800 euros per month. A 2-bedroom, 900 to 1,000 euros per month. A 3-bedroom, the price goes up rather a lot to around about 2,000 euros per month. But of course, many people want that lock and go that comes with an apartment. But for those of you who don't, well, perhaps it could be a townhouse, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom. It could be a bungalow, or it could be even a villa, 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom villa. Now, costs, how much? I hear you ask, is it going to cost me to rent a nice 3-bedroom villa? In and around 1,500 to 2,000 euros per month. Again, when we go to a 4-bedroom villa, we'll be talking 2,000 to 3,000 euros per month. Now, there are many villas that are to rent at 4,000, 5,000 and way beyond that. But if you're looking for a decent quality 3-bedroom villa, detached, with its own swimming pool, set yourself a budget of between 1,500 and 2,000 euros. If you want something a little bit more special, up that budget to between 2 and 2,500 euros per month. So that's probably going to be your biggest cost, as of course it is wherever you are in the world, your accommodation. After that, of course, comes the bills. Electricity, water, your rubbish collection and community charge tax, of course, internet and telecommunications and all those kind of things. So what are you going to expect to pay in Cyprus? We'll base our costs on, shall we say, a 3-bedroom mid-sized villa, because I think predominantly around the world, that is probably the #1 type of property that most people live in. So a 3-bedroom, moderately sized property. Electricity bill, now this can vary a lot. It depends, of course, on how much time you're going to spend in the property, and of course air conditioning, computers, how long you're going to have the swimming pool pump on, and all these kind of things. But in general, remember, Cyprus is an out-style lifestyle, so a lot of time you're going to be out and about, perhaps in your own pool or out at the beach, or maybe out in a bar or two or a restaurant in the promenade and harbour area. But to expect an electricity bill of around about 200 to 250 euros per month would not be unreasonable. If you've had the electricity and the aircon on 24 hours a day, that bill could get out of control, to be honest. This is what I'm warning you about now. Again, the pool pump, some people put their pool pump on 6 hours, 8 hours a day. In general, most people say 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours on an eve. But of course, this is down to individual taste. But realistically, on a 2 to 3 bedroom nice villa, you're going to expect an electricity bill of around about 250 euros per month in the summer, and a little bit cheaper in the winter, because of course the air conditioning will not be on quite so much. Water bill. Now, there's always a lot of talk about water in Cyprus. They're always saying that we're in the middle of a drought and we haven't got any water and we're going to run out of water, but I've been here 18 years and so far we have not run out of water. So let's keep our fingers crossed that that continues for the foreseeable future. But even though water is a very scarce commodity, to be fair, the water bills are not that high. Expect a water bill for that 3-bedroom villa with a pool of around about 50 euros per month. In the summer, a little bit higher because of course you are topping up your swimming pool, and in the winter, a little bit less because there's not quite so much evaporation on the water level in your swimming pool. So, that's your electricity, that's your water. What's next, I hear you ask? Well, the community fees, the community charge for the services that are being provided by the municipality, the council, to your property. For example, the roads, the rubbish collection, tidying up, and all these kind of things. Different countries have different names for it. In Cyprus, it's called the municipality tax. That, on average, is around about 200 euros per annum. Yes, you heard me correctly. 200 euros per year. Some areas are a little bit cheaper and some areas a little bit more expensive, but on average the majority of people will pay 200 euros per annum. Yes, per year for that, not per month. So that's a huge saving compared to many Northern European countries, and a huge saving compared to the UK. And primarily the majority of people that we are referencing are watching from the UK. And I think in general the average monthly charge is in excess of £200. So £200 a month in the UK, in Cyprus, for those little property taxes, should we call it, collecting the rubbish, tidying up, supplying roads to us and all those kind of things. £200 per annum, or even a little bit less in some cases. What's next? Telecommunications. You're obviously going to need a telephone line which will provide you with internet to your property. Now, it all depends on the speeds and the amount of data that you want, but in general, most people have got good access to the internet from their property for around 30 to 40 euros per month. And remember, I'm talking in euros. If you're watching from the UK, you can knock off 10% on every figure that I say. So that's your telecommunications and your internet package provided. What's next? Well, you're probably going to want a mobile phone, possibly on a contract. Contract phones start off at around about 10 euros per month. If you want unlimited from most of the providers, that's unlimited calls, unlimited data, unlimited texts. That's going to cost you between 25 and 30 euros per month, depending on which provider you choose. Do your homework on the providers, because some providers are better in some areas than other areas. For example, CableNet is a massive provider, but in my opinion, no disrespect to them, I don't think that their service covers Paphos that well. Whereas PrimeTel, MTM, which now is called Epic, seem to provide a fabulous service, as does CETA. So choose your network depending on where you are and ask one or two people at random what network they use and take their advice, and you won't go far wrong. So what's next? What's the next thing you're going to need? Part of your costs of living in Cyprus? Well, probably you're going to need a car. You're going to need some mode of transport. Obviously there's a bus service, you can use taxis, but a lot of people like to have the freedom of movement with a motor car. So they're going to purchase a car. Now cars in Cyprus in general are quite expensive, especially compared to the UK. Lots of Northern Europe don't find it as quite such a shock when they look at car prices in Cyprus. But if you are from the UK, you're in for a shock, because the price of cars is an awful lot more, except when you're buying them new. If you're buying them new, in some cases they're actually a little bit cheaper to buy them in Cyprus, but if you're buying it second hand, as most people are, you're going to find that a 3, 4, 5-year-old car is possibly more than 50% more expensive than it is in the UK. But of course, there is an advantage to that as well. When you come to sell the car in a year or 2 or 3, you'll find that it retains much more of its value. And of course, the weather in Cyprus is much kinder to cars in Cyprus. One of the primary reasons why people change their car is because it fails the MOT, and they're sick of it failing the MOT due to corrosion from the salt that's put on the roads in northern countries, and that causes problems to the suspension, the brake systems, the chassis, and in the end the car often is not worth repairing. But of course in Cyprus that doesn't apply, so you do find many cars that are driving around the roads that are 20, 25, 30 years old. Yes, and those cars are still worth 2,000 to 3,000 euros if they're in good condition and they're for sale in Cyprus. So cars is going to scare you. Cost of living and food, because we found somewhere to live, we understand those bills, and we've found some mode of transport, but now we need to eat. Again, if you're watching from the UK, when you go to certain supermarkets, you are in for a shock, because many things are much more expensive. But there are many things like fruits and vegetables which are literally locally grown that are much cheaper in Cyprus, and of course much healthier, because they have not travelled multiple miles through multiple countries before you get to consume them. In Cyprus often they've been grown in the next door field to the shop that's selling them, so that's a huge advantage. So it's a mix and a match when you go shopping. Some things are more expensive and some things are cheaper, but I think overall, from the people that I speak to, when you go shopping in the supermarkets in Cyprus, you will find that your bill is 10 to 15% lower, subject to what you buy in Cyprus. And remember, the other bills that we're talking about, your energy bills, are much cheaper. And that's before we get on to the big one. And the big one, of course, is tax. Many people are moving from Northern Europe and the UK because, shall we say, they're not happy with the way that their home country has developed. They're not happy with the way that the crime has got out of control in many of these countries. They don't feel safe, and they feel that they're being charged an awful lot of money via their taxes, and things are not going well. Now, I'm not going to say that Cyprus is perfect, but it's pretty close. Crime, you've heard me say many times, is extremely low. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't crime. There is. Now, I don't like to talk about these kind of things, but now and again someone does get stabbed in Cyprus, unfortunately. but it's very, very rare. In fact, it's probably once every 3 to 4 months, and it makes the national newspapers. Now, in many parts of Northern Europe and the UK, most of these cases don't even make the front of the newspapers because it's so common. Now and again, people do get shot in Cyprus, but again, not very often. If you check the statistics for Cyprus, in general, it's about once a year that someone gets shot. And normally that's because one or two neighbours had a bit of an argument and one of them went and did something stupid. So crime is very, very low. A huge thing to think about when you're thinking about moving to another country. Perhaps you're bringing your family with you, and we all understand that most people will put their family before anything else. Most people will fight and die for their family. So one of the safest places in the world is Cyprus. The lifestyle is, for want of a better word, amazing. And many people know that, which is why they keep coming back to Cyprus on their holiday. So the cost of living is affordable in general compared to Northern Europe and of course the UK. I would say it was 20 to 30% cheaper. The crime is literally non-existent, and on top of all of that, the politicians in Cyprus like to take money off you in the form of tax, but they're a little bit more reasonable than a lot of the politicians in Northern Europe and of course the UK. I'm going to say a huge thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little episode of Marika and Me, and hopefully you'll drop in the comments what would you like me to talk about next, as we give you information on how to move to Cyprus and what to expect when you come to Cyprus. And if you need help with relocating to Cyprus, perhaps you might want to consider myself and Marika as your relocation team. We can help you source that perfect rental property. We can help you with immigration. We can help you to rent a car, to buy a car, to change those bills into your name. Yes, all the little things that many people forget about. The complexity of changing an electricity bill from someone else's name into your name. You may think that it's simple, but it's not, especially if you don't speak the mother tongue and you don't know which office to go to. So if you want help and advice relocating to Cyprus, Paphos in particular, get in contact with us. Our contact details are in the description of this video. Website, email, and of course telephone and WhatsApp. And we'll look forward to holding your hand and making sure that your journey to come and live that next chapter on the island of love goes very, very smoothly indeed. Thanks for watching. I look forward to your company again very, very soon indeed. I'm going to leave you with the spectacality of a view indeed. And of course that in the distance is the blue Mediterranean Sea, and it's Mandria beach on the spectacality of a day indeed.